If you've been struggling to get depth with your reverbs, or maybe they just always sound cheap and plasticky and fake, then this is the video for you. Today, I'm going to walk you through some of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to dial in reverbs. Now, the techniques we're going to talk about today work on anything, including drums, guitars, and vocals. So by the end of this video, you're going to be able to dial in reverb like a pro. And if you need a little bit more help dialing things in, like EQ or compression, in the link is a description to download my rock and metal mixing cheat sheet. I have all of my favorite go-to settings for EQ and compression, so go and grab that. That is my free gift to you. So let's listen to what a dry snare drum sounds like in a drum kit. It doesn't sound very good. It makes our drum sound amateur. Like, some of it is good. A lot of it is bad. It feels really mono, feels kind of pushed back. And a lot of times when we add reverb, it'll actually push the drums back further. So you have to be very careful. So to avoid that, there's a setting that you have to always really pay attention to. So to start this off, let's just use a stock reverb here. It's simple. I want to prove to you, you can do this with any reverb. It's not that big of a deal. We're just going to see what it sounds like. Big improvement from where we were, right? And with it in, sounds actually pretty good to me. But let me just show you where people go wrong a lot of time. So most reverbs will have these settings. You have a reverb time, that's the length of the wash or the space. Diffusion, which we really don't need to worry about. That's more of like a early reflection type softening effect. High level and low level, that's probably unique to this plugin, but that's like a general EQ shaping. Some reverb plugins might have a low or high frequency roll off. It's gonna be similar to this. You have a mix knob usually. That's gonna be the amount of reverb signal to the signal that is on this track. So anything above 50%, we're going to be lowering our direct signal and we'll have more reverb signal. So that is going to immediately make it feel like the drums are no longer in the same space and they're kind of in like a room next door. So we want to keep everything below 50% if we put it on an insert. If we use this as a send effect, okay, or an auxiliary track, where you would then go and set up a send effect and then you would send from your snare channel to that separate effect, then you want your mix knob to be at 100% wet, okay? You never want it to be less than 100% if you're using it as a send effect. But today, we're not using it as a send effect. We're putting it directly on the track with the snare bus, okay? Because I have a whole bunch of these snare tracks that we all want to have the same reverb sound. So we're putting it on the shared snare bus, okay? The setting I was talking about that a lot of people don't pay attention to, but they really, really, really need to, is this right here, this pre-delay. Okay, what does pre-delay do? Let me just show you what it sounds like. Okay, this is no pre-delay. With pre-delay. And at some point, if you get too high of a pre-delay, it sounds like an echo now. It doesn't even sound like a reverb anymore. Pre-delay is the time it takes for the reverb signal to happen once the sound gets into the reverb plugin. Most of the time, people are like, oh, I want it to start immediately when the snare drum hits, like this. The problem with that is that's not how reverb is in the real world. In the real world, the sound has to bounce off of some sidewall and then get to our ears, okay? That is the same thing as the pre-delay that we're defining in the plugin. So for us to make it feel more realistic, we actually want to add some amount of pre-delay to it. And it's actually going to make the reverb sound bigger than it does when it has no pre-delay. Another thing it does is it allows some of the transient to come through before it gets clouded up with that reverb signal. So by adding a little bit of pre-delay, without it getting too long that it sounds like an echo, allows it to really punch through the mix and feel like it's still forward in the mix. So let me show you what that looks like when we dial this in. And you hear how with no pre-delay, the snare just kind of sounds flat. It doesn't have impact. Getting closer. The body's starting to come out of the snare drum now. Okay, that is too far. Now it feels like a slapback echo, right? So right between about 50 and 60 was the best. And honestly, I think I like that probably the best, around 50 milliseconds. Okay, super important. Do not skip out on this step. I see a lot of people doing crazy stuff like this. Sounds broken. Don't do that. Still too slow. That's feeling about right. There's just so much more impact at the 40 milliseconds. Maybe it's subtle to you, but when you stack a bunch of reverbs together over the context of an entire song, it makes a huge, huge difference. All right, another thing I want to point out is this right here, this high level, okay? Reverbs have a lot of frequencies that get added back into the song. It makes it hard to mix if you have too much stuff, especially reverb frequencies. So a lot of these plugins will have some sort of ability to raise or lower the low or high end of the reverb. If we listen to just the reverb, that's what it sounds like without any snare. This is what's adding to our snare drum. Okay, I had it at 10%. Sounds a lot darker, almost like an oil tanker or something weird like that. When you have a lot of this high frequency information in with the snare drum, it adds too much sparkly stuff to the mix, and it just takes away from the snare. It doesn't feel natural. Reverbs usually aren't bright and sparkly. In the real world, the high frequencies are the ones that absorb the easiest on different materials. To make it more realistic, we want to roll off some of that high energy without it crowding the mix, okay? If we bring all the drums in, way too bright. Dial it back. And you also notice that you get a lot more punch out of your snare when you dial this back too. Some people could do is you could add an EQ after the reverb, but the problem of doing it this way when you have it as an insert is you're also going to change the sound of the snare drum now. Right? So not only are we affecting the sound of the reverb, but we're also affecting the snare drum. So the way to get around that would be to set this up as a send effect. So I'll just show you really quickly. We're just going to add a reverb. Okay, so we set up our send effects. We got the reverb plugin added to it. If you remember earlier, we have to set the mix to 100% so that only the reverb signal is coming from here, and then we can send some of our signal to our reverb from our snare channel now. So now what we have is this. No reverb, then we can send our reverb. Let's dial back that pre-delay. It's just a little too long. Cool. Now that we have this auxiliary track or this send track, we can add an EQ after it. So now we can just change the sound of the reverb itself. Right? There's that nasty top end on that reverb. Can roll that off. You could scoop out some muddy frequencies. Make the reverb a little bit smoother. Or maybe you just want to make the reverb a little warmer. You can do that too by just adding a gentle boost. Now, if you didn't want to do all of that stuff, another option and a shameless plug from me is I actually released a delay plugin that is this crazy hybrid of a delay and a reverb. I designed this to make sure that any reverb or delay sound you craft with this will stay up front and center. It does things no other delay or reverbs can do. So let me just show you really quickly. You could just dial in drum room vibes. Okay, this has a bunch of internal processing. We can saturate our delay and reverb signals, and this will generate a super clean, punchy reverb in drum space that just sounds killer. So you can just throw this right onto your snare bus with. And that's just one of the many presets we have here. You want a little bit longer, you add more length. Built-in EQ. Clear out some of the mud, maybe add a little bit of presence. Roll off the highs. It's also a high pass filter. Add a little bit more analog goo. Sounds awesome. So quickly before and after, here's our drums. With. Without. Notice there's no pre-delay here. It's because it's already perfectly dialed in for you. All right, enough of that. So let me know what you thought. Did you think that these were helpful? Are you making any of these mistakes? Let me know in the comments below. If you're in the market for a new reverb or delay plugin, and probably the last one you would ever need, ever, go and check out Clarity Delay. It's just so much fun to use that plugin. Don't forget to grab my free rock and metal mixing cheat sheet. It has really good settings for compression, EQ. You can download it in the description, and it's totally free. My name is Bobby Balo. I'm the mixing and mastering engineer at Rayton Productions, and I'll see you in the next video.